This is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Thank you so much for being here. This show is created to discuss life topics to challenge, grow, and transform your thinking. Today, I have Matt Zinman here. So he is a difference maker. I love this word that he uses. He's devoted to personally enriching the happierness of at least 100 million people by 2025. And that's why he's here on Straight Talk, because he is also going to be impacting you, and we're going to be added into that 100 million people number, right, Matt?
Perfect. Perfect.
So Matt, you are a difference maker. So we're going to get into what that means.
Sure.
You're an optimist, an author, a podcast host, a nonprofit founder, because why not do everything, right? So thank you so much for being here. How are you today?
It's a pleasure. It's great to be with you, Nina. I'm doing great. I've had a great week and relaxed. I've
Good.
been looking forward to the conversation, and thanks so much for having me.
All right. I love your energy. You have like this really cool vibe going on. I love that. So I wanted to start off with who you are. Like you could just give us a little snippet about who you are, who's Matt, so that we can go ahead and get onto the nitty gritty.
Sure. Well, I'm a Libra. I'll just start there. Um,
I love it.
yeah, I'm actually on my third career, which kind of started somewhat unexpectedly. So I'm in and around Philadelphia. I've been here my whole life, and I graduated and spent my first career in and around marketing, communication, public relations, journalism degree. And then in 2002, I had a major life intersection, which uh, essentially, I got divorced and had a 2-year-old child. And it was very important to me to be a 50% dad. And
Mm,
so that also coincided with me starting my own company, which naturally was in that same field, and did that for a few years. And in 2005, I ventured into the world of internships, and it's something that's always been really close to my heart. I had a number of internships that led to my first job. Always ran programs for the employers that I had. Ran my own program virtually at the time for my company, and just recognized that it was just a vast frontier in need of support. And so I developed kind of somewhat of like the wheel of internships, like the Here You Go, mainly for employers to uh, you know, install programs,
okay.
as it were, and started a nonprofit still focused on that in 2007 called the Internship Institute, and mainly ran that with grants over the years. Not just for and around college students, but disadvantaged youth, military in
That's
transition.
good.
So it was a great experience. I have a lot to show for it, but to be honest, Nina, it was probably the hardest thing I could
Mhm,
possibly imagine trying to do. And there's just a lot of kicking and scratching and pushing the boulder uphill, whatever kind of
mhm, mhm.
metaphor to use. And in recent years, it just seems to have gotten harder. And as it happens, um, the pandemic came about, and two things converged at that time, which is that I had been writing my book, Z-isms, that I published also at the very same time as the pandemic came out. So all my signings, my launch party, it was like
Of
poof.
course.
And and that led to some good things too. It
Mhm.
it the word pivot, of course, is overused, but that's what comes to mind in the moment. To do a lot of podcast interviews like this, and really have loved it. And the other thing is that the pandemic really just sidelined the nonprofit. Not a lot of internships.
That's
The
true.
grants weren't there, the employers aren't doing it. It was all this whole transition. And in truth, it was really, its time had come. And so it's on the side burner still. Not I don't think forever. I think its time will come again. But what happened was, rather than just writing the book, publishing it, and going back to really what I would consider my life's work, I ended up swimming with the current and leaning in more beyond the book to start my own podcast, which is the same as the subtitle of the
That's
book,
great.
which is Insights to Live By. And we were talking pre-show, so now I'm on episode 56, and do that weekly. And then you got to make a living, since that wasn't happening.
Very true. Very true.
Fortunately, my wife and I I've been remarried now for 4 years, but of course I was a single dad for all the rest, if you do the math. And we have another business that fortunately, has enabled us to, maintain and not be
Good.
overly concerned about mortgage getting paid, when you get hit with something so major as, your organization of 15 years, as I described. And so now what I've done more recently is developed courses so that the book being the book, as practical as it was written to be, it's got limitations. It's a book, so I thought it was really important to have it evolve as things have continued to since that it came out last year, to create this course, the Life Upgrade, and
That's
and then
good.
there's a shorter course that's the front end of it that's called the Mindset Reset. So that pretty much brings you up to date over a 30-year period.
So tell me a little bit about the book then, because what is Z-isms,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And what is that about? But the nonprofit, that sounds like a really great idea though that you had there with with internships and stuff, because I think that a lot of organizations can really benefit from something like that. And
Absolutely.
I'm wondering now with people now getting kind of ready to go back to work, if that baby still does stay on the sidelines or if you're going to pull that back in. It's going to be interesting to see what you do with that, right? Are you excited or are you nervous or what do you think?
In terms of the Internship Institute,
Yeah.
at this time, I have no plan to take it off the side burner.
Yeah. Yeah.
It, it,
Something happens when you become a podcaster, Matt. I
I
gotta
don't
tell
know if
you.
it's the podcaster. You talk about it being a good idea, and it's still as much of a frontier as it was when I started 15, 16 years ago. It's an industry fraught with a lot of you would thinks. To your point, for the very same reason as I got into it. Now, where Z-isms is concerned, there's a story behind why the book was named that. It's not quips and quotes, it's a full-fledged book, but Z-isms are those insights to live by. It's your life lessons. And so I wanted to incorporate my own life lessons, and for the
Hmm.
very reason why a lot of people want to write a book in and around being a single dad and an entrepreneur,
Oh,
and
that's
was
good.
a competitive athlete, and I'm still playing ice hockey, but I also was a caregiver. Saw my mom through a very difficult time, which is, she's gone now 25 years just in a few months. And all these, as with anyone, life experiences add up, and a number of things that have evolved through those, I felt and now know are original in terms of the things that I've learned, and I just thought it was, and and following through, important to share. So I'm sure we can certainly get into that, but Z-isms are those insights to live by, and to your point, Happierness actually evolved after Z-isms. It's now been integrated into, I've done a show on the podcast. It's also now integrated into the new courses. So
Oh,
it
good.
just continues to evolve. And what Happierness is essentially extreme optimism in real time. So
Oh,
when you
okay.
look at optimism, it's not now. Optimism is about hopefulness.
Right.
And I really couldn't find a word that captured, well, what is that reflex of positivity that goes to the fact that while we can't control the things that happen to us, we do have control over how we react to them and
Yeah, true.
handle them. And so happiness is about that reflex, and then there's this whole mindset that goes around it in order to be able to, it's a life skill, so it's not meant to be a
Yeah.
derivative of happy or happiness, uh although there are some commonalities. It really is a standalone, so it's kind of as just as Z-isms. It's kind of how my branding in part is evolving.
That's really great, right? I mean, you're taking like all of the knowledge of everything that you've gone through, and this is what I'm hearing you say, and you're just putting that in a place where you can impart that to someone else, right? So an athlete, a father, a caregiver, that's a lot of different facets of your life, and a lot. So that means that you can then touch different facets of people's lives. And that's a very powerful thing to have, right? I always tell people to not hide but own their story, because sometimes people think their story is just not even important enough or relevant enough or whatever enough, right? It's always about the enough thing. But
Right.
I always feel like, yeah, maybe you don't think your story is enough, but you'd be surprised how much that story can impact and touch the life of someone else, right? So you went ahead and started a podcast, which I know that gives us some podcast fever because I love podcasting. It's one of my favorite things to do. And you're right, something happens though. There's a spark that happens, and before you know it, you're like, okay, I got to do something else, and I got to do more, and I got to do more. I'm on my third or fourth career as well, and it's super fun to reinvent yourself, to find something new and invigorating, right? Are you finding that?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I describe. While naturally I couldn't control how the pandemic sidelined the nonprofit after all those years
Right.
of blood, sweat, tears, and then some. It was the right thing that happened to me,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
now I'm in a different purpose where I am making more of a difference thanks to you. Your audience who's listening. Hopefully, they'll get something great out of the conversation. I mean, that's why we're
Yeah.
here. Um, and now it's really very aligned with what I see and continue to do moving forward. So when you look at Z-isms as a whole, as that across the board life upgrade type book, and even more than that, up into the what the course is now as it continues, you know, uh, in the moment, it really at the foundation it has the four modules, if you don't mind for me to
No, please,
describe.
please do.
So it takes all the concepts from the book and intertwines them in the right way. So it starts with self-discovery and mindset.
Yep,
Naturally, I mean,
yep.
that's where you really obviously have to start to be clear, and that's about perception, earned confidence, which is actually my chapter one. I really do want to come back to that because it's a grounding principle. And then about winning the battle within, and in large part around self-kindness, which is also something I think to delve back into. Then when we get into module two around well-being, but not as much into areas of like nutrition and
Mhm, mhm.
exercise. That's not my expertise, but more in and around mood health. And
That's good.
folded into the experiences is depression, which is something I've had continue to contend with since my teens. My dad was bipolar, my mom was a depressive. Um, she was a suicide survivor, and my brother was not. I lost my brother in 2012, so it's something very, as deep as it gets to one's
Yeah.
heart. And then also in that area, we talk about managing energy. So as an entrepreneur, when I go through my days, I manage energy, not time, to
Oh,
be
that's
more
good.
productive. And
That's
then
good.
interpersonal energy,
Mm, I like that.
and how we affect one another, and being mindful of somewhat of a responsibility we have both to ourselves and others to be clear that we affect other people, our bad mood, for example.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it gets into the next area around relationships and interactions. That's where you get into conflict resolution, emotional intelligence, um, dealing with manipulators, um, trusting your intuition, something called, swimming with the current, which we've already kind of gotten into
Mhm.
just in my own experiences. And then it elevates into the final area in and around harnessing gratitude and defining your why. And in there folds a lot around entrepreneurship and
Mhm.
doing the law of attraction is not going to write your book. It's not going to create your courses. It's not going to do those big, your wide goals. And so there's something in and around inevitability, which is about fueling that through self-belief, right? So just as gratitude is known to be powering the law of attraction,
Right.
self-belief is really what gets you, those goals that are effortful to be achieved. And then the last part of it is around livelihood alignment, and that fortunately it brings to bear all of my career expertise and experience through the nonprofit, is also now built into the course, to then come out of it with kind of this roadmap, this life enrichment action plan, so that it is more practical for the course taker to come away and apply it moving forward.
Wow.
So that's the short of it.
That's an amazing that's that's awesome. That's really great. You're like really packing it in these courses. So were you always like a course creator or no? Because it sounds like you got this.
Yeah, again, pre-show, I was like, I don't go halfway, I didn't, and
Right.
the same
That's really
thing,
good.
with the book. It's actually a 29-day course. People can do it obviously in less, but it's built to be average about an hour a day. Um, and it takes
Hmm.
some grit, but if
Yeah.
what's a life upgrade worth to you? Less than
Yeah.
a
So
month out of
30 days to an upgrade, huh?
less than a month, 29.
Yeah. 29, right.
So
29
yeah.
days to an upgrade.
So and again, when you get to, if you do it straight, it's going to be shorter, because the last 4-5 days are going to be module reviews, and then actually doing that leap plan that I described, that kind of threads it all together
Right.
um in a meaningful way. So yeah, thank
That's
you
really
so much
powerful.
for letting me share that. And
Yeah, it's a
um
powerful tool. I do want to go back to the self-awareness that you said in the beginning, right? Because I agree with you on like everything you were saying was like, wow, I resonate with a lot of that. I'm gonna look into that program. I want to check it out.
thank you.
And I like that you do have to start with yourself, right? You do have to start with self-awareness. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people struggle with, right? Because if you have to look at yourself, you have to own your stuff, and that's not always an easy thing to do, right? So
Yeah.
how do you start this course off? What's your first like thing that you're going to hit with them?
I mean, the course is essentially a combination of short videos. It's a video-based course, but also some readings, very short readings that are
Uh-huh.
in part coming a combination from the book and things that I've covered in the podcast since, and things that have evolved. So it's all up to the minute. But really, all the activities. It took me 3 months to
Oh
to
yeah, I'm
to
sure it
do
did.
it, um, so that everybody's putting in the action. So, for example, that first module in the shorter course I mentioned is the mindset reset,
Yeah.
which you could just naturally do that in and around that self discovery. So it starts with perception.
Perception.
What's your take? And I have a chapter naturally on perception in the book. As I mentioned, everything from Z-isms intertwines here, because we have perceptions of ourselves, we have perception around the world around us. It then is all broken out into your values, your character traits, and then it brings it all back together so that you're really clear about knowing what it is that you want to work on from a personal development
That's
standpoint.
good. Mm-hmm.
And then the other two things, I know I went through a lot, but earned confidence and self-kindness are really at the heart of the happierness mindset. So in order to have that reflex of positivity, you have to be able to be in the present, which is,
Yeah.
living in the not now, as a lot of people do, is one of the greatest, chief sources of unhappiness. And so there's are the
That's
techniques.
good.
Well,
That's good.
how do
Mm-hmm.
you how do you how do you defeat that? And so for me, earned confidence actually came about through my experience with my mom, in being a caregiver, because um, it's heavy. I mean, my mom contracted HIV through a blood transfusion before they knew what it was, and so she really got the worst of it. And in the later years, as I mentioned, it's been 25 years now, so I can
Right.
certainly, I'm going to well up a little bit, but I can get through the conversation. You just like anybody who goes through that, toward the end, you think you're going to lose them, and then they pull through, and then you put yourself through that anguish. And when it gets to the point of like, I can't do this anymore, I just, it's got to be a what will be will be. And
Right. Right.
it's certainly just like anything in life, going through hardship and making you, stronger. um that earned confidence is one of those concepts that has always stuck with me, because what it speaks to, Nina, is that we've all been through all the things that we have in our lives, and we're still here. And so we all have proven to ourselves, having earned it, that we're fully capable of
It's so
overcoming and
good.
coping with everything
Yeah.
that we have. So
Yeah.
unless you're going through the absolute worst thing in your life,
Yeah.
you know that you've got it. So that means you don't have to get caught up in
That's
worry
so
or
good.
anxiety
Love it.
or the things that take you out of the present. So earn confidence is almost kind of like a logic formula to enable you to get away from uncertainties in your future thinking. And then in a around winning the battle within is the focus on self-kindness, which is the other side of it in
Yeah.
around defeating your past. Because when we look at the goals that people set around personal development and self-improvement, it naturally is, my self-esteem, my self-confidence, self-love, of course, is at the heart of it all. But the challenge that you have with striving toward those things is that they're all so vague. So, like you feel cruddy about yourself, whatever that is, but how do you get from here to there?
Right.
And what self kindness does is it makes it tangible. It gives you that barometer because it's a this or a that. You're either being kind to yourself or you're not. And so in real time, once again, it allows you, number one, to drop all the big baggage. So if you have regret, resentments, shame,
Hmm.
anger, trauma,
Unforgiveness. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you can't wish it away, but the logic of it is it's not kind to yourself to hold on to that negativity. So
That's so good.
it's going to allow you to defeat it. That's what the winning the battle within is. And so now you defeated your big past and your big present. That's why it's a life skill. I mean,
Right.
like anything, you got to learn
Right.
how to play the guitar. Once you know how, you know how. Or I'll go with the ride the bike. And so um, this is all at the heart of the happiness mindset stuff. And then the other aspect of it, which is really ever present, is that for those of us who've really solved the big stuff and are pretty good at, we all worry and you have to kind of like, battle that as a
Hmm.
habit. Um, but we also have those ruminating thoughts on a day-to-day basis that might be lighter in terms of, wow, I really shouldn't have said that in that interview with Neena. Why did I do that? I hate myself, or are you ruminating about something that's coming up that you're feeling a little anxious about, but that
Hmm.
rumination is unproductive. So like if you're not ruminating and solving something, you're just putting yourself through neg. So you have to have and develop that mindfulness, really, that self-awareness, to catch yourself when these like almost
Yeah.
subconscious thoughts are swirling through your head.
And
Now
there's a lot of them, huh?
there's a
There's
lot
a
of them.
lot.
So once you are able to get skilled up at self-kindness and have that be your, integrate that into your daily mindset, along with earned confidence, along with self-awareness about those day-to-day ruminations, which can really take you out of the present. Well, now you can be present. And
Right.
once you're present, you can apply the happiness reflex so that when something terrible happens to you in a coping skill, again, you're back to that choice. How do you respond to it in a way
Hmm.
that it doesn't throw you all the way off kilter, that you're going to have to work your way back from in order
Right.
to, regain your balance. And then it also enables you to push forward in your personal development into mindfulness, into energy awareness and management, into gratitude, and then escalating again, just in the way that I described around how it does in the book, around your purpose and your your achievement of that purpose, and that all combined, to me, is the shortest path to a happier life, and that's
Yeah.
where happiness comes from.
Yeah, and it is a shorter path, isn't it? I mean, like when you think about it, if you are living in the present and you are mindful of what you're doing, you're self-aware and you are kind to yourself and all that, it is a shorter path. I think most of us take the long path, right? So we stay stuck in the past. We stay stuck with things that have hurt us. We stay in the victim mentality. We don't know how to move forward. We're not kind to ourselves, and that's that's a big problem. And it's a big problem that a lot of people are going through. It really is a big problem. And I guess because I've gotten to the point where I do wake up every day grateful. I have a really great attitude of gratitude. And that's just the way I live my life. And that has completely shifted and pivoted, to overuse the word,
Sure.
um, my whole life to a better trajectory and a better direction. So now that I am self-aware, I see it very clearly in others. You probably feel that as well, I'm sure, when you're speaking to people, and you could probably catch the negativity or that energy quickly, right? Do you find that you've been more attuned to that?
Sure. That goes back to energy management. It's kind of like suit of armor. And again, you can't control someone's bad day. Like you could be in a restaurant and the server comes up to you and it's a common thing, like they're hassled and they're flipping your
Hmm.
attitude and you're like, what's their problem? Well, a second ago you were happy.
Right.
So instead,
So true.
take the opportunity while you're not going to be like, what's your problem? You're going to be like, how can I make this person smile?
Hmm.
And make a conscious effort to help them catch their balance and feel the gratitude of knowing that you did that consciously for that other. It's a little pay it forward for that other person. Um, Another example, while we talk about self-kindness in the big stuff, that, baggage, right? Whatever fits in the bag, how do you leave that behind?
Right.
Um, would be an example. Well, it would be like you're someone who has a hard time saying no. Like if you know that about yourself, you're like, yeah, I really should stop. I should say no more often. And you're kind of like, is that a pushover or a people pleaser? And what? But the reality is you're also having to deal with people who maybe take advantage of you, and that's where the manipulation
Right.
comes in. And that's
Right.
another this or that. You're either a manipulator or you're not. And let's say that you're dealing with that and you're in that moment. Now you're present and someone's asking you to do something. Would it be kind to myself to say yes? Ask yourself that
That's
question,
good.
because if it won't
That's
be,
good.
say no. Because the problem is, if you say yes and it's unkind to yourself, then you not only feel bad about yourself for saying yes, you're going to feel really bad about yourself when you have to go and do the thing that you said yes to.
Right.
So it's kind of, it gets really it builds on itself in a negative way. And that's how self-kindness is also applies day to day.
Right. So how do you, Matt, how do you get through the tough times, or when something that is really weighing heavy on you is happening, right? So you go to your book or your course. How do
Well,
you yourself, like, what's your method of getting through something that's tough?
honestly, it's always been somewhat of a, except for, when I, have had to contend with depression, which is a whole other, ball
Yeah, I
game.
had
But,
that too. I
right,
get it.
when I'm healthy, and I have been, I haven't had a bout since 2013, which really was my low point. Um, I've always had that natural reflex, which I didn't call Happierness. Like I mentioned, it didn't even exist till after the book got published.
Right.
But that's always been how I've been. And it's interesting, Nina, when I started promoting the book, there was a mentor of mine that I go back 30 years early in my PR career. His name was Warren. And hey Warren, I published this book, and he says, that's great for you. He says, I've always known you to be relentlessly positive. And I was like, yeah, yeah, like that fits. But it was a nice way to connect with my younger self, to
Right.
know, like, this is, I know who I am. And so I've, I'm always striving toward that extreme optimism. Now look, I mean, life happens, and
Of course.
again, how do you respond to it? And let's say grief. How do I deal with it? I go through grief.
Right.
I
Oh,
deal
that's
with
good.
I
That's
deal with my
good.
feelings,
Right.
because you have to get
I
past them.
love that. I love that though, because what you're saying is that these emotions are real, and we're not just going to sit there and ignore them and act like they're not real. They're
No, you
real.
can't.
We'll
You
have
can't.
them. We'll go through them, and then we learn how to deal with them and move on. And I've spoken, and the reason I asked that question is because I've spoken to many people, which is the best part about being a podcaster. And I had one a long time ago who said, well, yeah, I just cut them off. If somebody makes me mad, I just cut it off. And if I'm feeling grief, I just cut it off. And I'm like, that's not very healthy, because at some point, at least I think, at some point, that's all going to come to a head
Right.
because you haven't dealt with it. So to me, like, I was speaking to a woman, and we were talking about forgiveness and moving on in life and shame and all that. And she said, oh my God, forgiveness is bullshit. And I'm like, actually, if you sit in unforgiveness too long, you start to smell like shit. So it's actually the opposite, right?
Totally.
Yeah, it's the opposite. I was listening to you earlier when you were talking about, like just dealing with things with shame and all that stuff that comes in. That stuff is not easy. It's very, very hard to do, and also very freeing. There is a sense of freedom that comes when you deal with baggage and garbage, and you can start to like self-reflect and move forward. I think the work that you're doing is amazing. And I love that you came up
Thank
with this
you.
course. It
Thank you.
sounds absolutely insightful. And if somebody takes this course and is very serious about taking this course, they really can do a nice change in their life, because you're hitting all the really important marks, right?
Yeah.
And do you feel like somebody absolutely has to deal with the past in order to deal with the present to move forward? Or do you feel like you can actually just start from now, from here, and move forward?
I mean, the answer to me is very straightforward. Is that it's not kind to yourself to allow residual negativity to sap your energy and quality of life. And so when you
Good.
look at something like forgiveness, which to whoever said that to you, um, the challenge with forgiveness is that your ego's in the way,
Hmm.
and that whatever happened with someone that, let's say that grudge is there, you know, whatever that is for you, maybe somebody doesn't deserve that forgiveness. Probably that's why you're not forgiving them.
Right.
So the way you deal with that with your ego is, if I'm not going to forgive someone, they're still hurting me,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Holding on
Yeah.
to that
Yeah.
anger is kind of still letting that person get one over on me.
Right.
So while I don't have to go and say, I forgive you, Neena, because you wronged me, I'm just going to forgive them within myself and,
Right.
like click my heels and move on, because I'm not going to let them get one over on me.
Right.
That's how you are self-kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And forgiving yourself, right?
And
Because I
forgiving
mean,
yourself.
yeah,
Right.
because sometimes we're even harder on ourselves than we are on the people who hurt us.
We could have the whole show on that. I
Yeah.
mean, like, who's harder on us than ourselves? And then it's like,
That's
would you
right.
ever let your best friend or anybody talk to you the way that you
Right.
talk to yourself? And that
Right.
again is like once you insert self-kindness and earned confidence, they're both very definitive.
Right.
So that's why I really advocate those, and those are the life experiences and mindsets that, like, there's so many mindset people out there, but the reality is everybody's got their own lane, and this is mine. And I just really appreciate the opportunity to share it with you and
Yeah.
those listening.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, actually. Thank you very much. And I can't wait to let everyone know about it, because I think, when I hear something that resonates with me that I feel like is going to make an impact, that's what I gravitate to. That's what I like, because I have been through too much garbage in my life. And so when I see things that are good, you know, I, it's just how I flow, right? I just don't want any more garbage in my life. That's just how I am, right? And like to your point, right? There's a lot of mindset people. There's a lot of gurus out there trying to just like suck you in, right? And I don't do well with that, because if you're
Right.
just and I've had many people, contact me. I don't know if you have this on your show, but a lot of people will contact me. Oh, I want to be on your show. Why? Oh, because I have this program. But what are we doing
Right.
to impact lives here? I don't need to talk about your show. I mean, you could talk about your own project. You know what I mean? Like, I want to know how you are using what you are doing to impact the life of someone else. That's what I want to know, right?
Well,
So Matt,
sure.
you're doing it.
Thank you. I mean, one of the things I realized kind of worked out for me is, I wrote the book and have been doing a lot, this work in a bubble, which is to say that I haven't been, I read a lot of personal development books as I was working through things in my youth. I'm
Right.
I'll be 54 in a few months, but that uh, I haven't, honestly. I mean, I'm reading them now more, but through the process of doing the writing and developing, it all comes from me. I'm not going and researching what, some other guru is saying and trying to, borrow concepts from them, which is why I know it's different.
Right.
And and
Right.
um and and I'm
And
just so
authentic.
and authentic. Thank you. And Neena, to your point, I don't know if we're winding down the show or you want to get into anything else, or
Yeah, we have a few minutes. Go ahead.
No, it's up to you. What do you want to talk about?
Oh, no, I thought you were going to finish your sentence. No,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. Nope, you go.
All right, I'll go then. Well, one of the things with the life upgrade, and you're very gracious about this, is I want to make it as accessible as possible. And truly for me, I mean, I have this internal battle around authenticity and being like salesy, right? It's like, oh,
Right.
now I have this thing for sale. It's like I was talking about my course for the better part of this interview. It's honestly stretches my comfort zone. And then to take it another step further, you were very cool about I want to set up a code and do something special for your listening audience that I'll set up today, so
Mhm.
that of course when the podcast airs it's there. That is straight talk 100, and that will get them $100 off the life upgrade, which is only,
That's
it's not even
amazing.
$500. And then the other thing, Nina, we didn't talk about this, is I want you to do the mindset reset for free. I'll give you the course
Oh,
because if you're,
wow.
well, I mean, look, if you're going to have this affiliated with your show, it's your street cred. I'll want you to know exactly what this is so that you can speak from that experience. And that's the
That's amazing.
challenge. I mean,
Hmm.
that's the challenge with it. It's like cart and horse. It's like, well, I can describe this left and right, but until someone
Hmm.
experiences it for themselves and gets the transformation out of it for themselves, it just looks good on a website.
That's amazing. Thank you. And thank you very much for doing that. Because my audience, they're all about developing. So this is going to be an amazing offer for them. So it's Straight Talk 100.
Straight Talk
And so
100.
Straight
Yeah.
Talk 100. And where do they go? What is the link or where do they go to do that?
So my website is mattzinman.com, but the direct site to get to the life upgrade is mattzinman.com/life upgrade.
Okay, great. So I'll make sure to put that also on our notes here and make sure that is on the screen for them to see. And is there anything else we should be doing to follow you or support what you're doing? Do you have can they get all the social media handles on your website as well?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, definitely feel free to follow me. What I'm really interested in is, those who take to this and follow through, stick with it.
Yeah,
And the thing is, there's no two ways about it. I mean, as easy as it sounds in concept, blocking out an hour a day is not something people find easy to do in their
right.
busy days. And so I encourage people to make that commitment, literally calendar it, so that they're investing in themselves. It's not even a month to do
Right.
it. And I also guarantee the course 100%. I'll refund them if they come through
Wow.
the course and do the life enrichment action plan and say this wasn't for me. If they go through the course and say that, I don't deserve their money.
Right.
So they'll
Right.
see the 100%
Matt, that's
guarantee
amazing.
on
Yeah.
there. So it's no risk.
Right. Well, and yeah, and you're really putting your money where your mouth is, right? Like you're just like, listen, I'm trying to transform and help you transform your life the way of you're thinking in 29 days, not 30, 29 days. And so what you're saying to them is if you're putting in the effort and you're doing what you have to do, you are going to have a transformed life at the end of this course. And so if people are going to take this seriously and you're going to go on here and you're going to use that code Straight Talk 100, go ahead and get your discount on there as well. And you're going to take this course, then do the work, guys. Do the work because
Yeah.
why not? What do you have to lose now? And at that, Matt just said it, it's money back guarantee if you don't get anything out of it. So come on, what are you doing? Right. So let's try it. Let's go for it. Let's transform our lives and be the better person on the other side of this. Right, Matt?
Absolutely. I'd love
There
to
you go.
hear from anyone who follows through about their experience. I mean, you know, that's what matters to me
Right.
is to hear, the impact on them. All of this came out of me, but until other people experience it for themselves, I'm never going to know, what that's like. And to your point, don't sell yourself short. You don't,
Right.
right? Um, it's only
Right.
29 days out of your life, and
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
rest of your life to be better. And
Right. And it's
that's kind of
actually
the pitch.
not expensive at all either. So there's no, obviously what I'm trying to say is I think you removed a lot of excuses,
Right.
right?
Yeah, I want to make it
So yeah,
accessible. Yeah.
yeah, it's amazing.
Thank you.
I love it. I love the whole concept. I love the idea. I love what you're doing. I was listening to some of your YouTube today. It's very inspiring. So thank you for that.
Of course, yeah.
And I'm really, I'm grateful that you took the time to be on my show, Matt. I'm really grateful.
Well, I mean, yeah, can I tell a quick that reminds
Go
me of
right
something.
ahead.
Yeah, something
Yeah.
really impacted me early in my first career. I was like right out of school. I was at my first conference, and I went to the person who was like the rock star of the industry, like standing room only, and somehow I got the nerve to go up and ask this person a question, and like I was standing in line, and like my heart started pounding. Like that feeling like the police are pulling you
Mm-hmm.
over, kind of pound. Although I don't think it's ever happened to me back at that time. And so I went up to him, and I'm like, his name, Mr. Jackson. I said, Mr. Jackson, thank you for your time. He's like, well, isn't it your time too? And I was like, yeah.
Ooh.
He said, well, I don't see why my time's any more important than your time. So,
Wow.
what's your question? I get chills. And I always love paying that
Wow.
forward. Um, so thank you for reminding me of that story, because it's just nobody's more important than anybody else.
Nope. I agree. And I think that people need to know that, right? I mean, they're just as important. And that's why when I do these interviews, this is important to me. That's why I'm not like looking around and fiddling and you know what I mean? Because honestly, Matt, the way I live my life and I try to live my life like this as much as I am conscious of it, is that every moment is important. And I know that I'm not promised not even a minute from today, not even a minute now, right?
Right.
So I always try to think about that and try to be impactful as much as I can when I'm conscious of it, because sometimes you go through life and you're just like busy. But these important conversations last with me. They stay with me. And so thank you for being here. And I
Thank
really
you.
mean that. Thank you for spending and sharing this space with me, because straight talk is really important to me. And straight talk the show, but also straight talking, which is what we're doing.
For sure.
So thank you so much, Matt. And I'll make sure that I link everything so that everyone can follow and look into your program, because I think it's going to be really impactful and important. So thank you.
Thank you, Nina. No amount of money can buy you back time.
That's right. Isn't that true? I mean, today will never be seen again. You'll never see this day again, ever.
So make the best of
Right?
it.
That's
Exactly.
right.
And again, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you for your listeners, for their interest, and I hope they follow through. Or any way I can help, please let me know.
Yeah, thank you so much. And guys, thank you so much for being here and spending this time with us. Make sure that you don't forget to subscribe to this channel and share, and make sure you leave a comment or a review, something, so that we know that you're out there and that you're listening. And please do follow Matt. I'm going to make sure that I link all of his information below so that you don't miss a thing. Thank you so much for being here. This is Nina Perez. This is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next time.